dear students, researchers, teachers, our guests. It's my pleasure to welcome you at our information center, and we are ready to start our first seminar on information literacy. You know that there is a rather great problem for young researchers of Russian universities to present their ideas, rather valuable and interesting, to the international academic community. And the problem or the matter is generally the lack of knowledge how to arrange papers according to the requirements and conditions of international academic journals. That's why I would like to thank our guests who arrived from Ireland, from Limerick Institute of Technology, Mr. Padraig Kirby and Mr. Jerald Cavanagh. And I would like to thank them for their visit, and they agreed to give us a kind of workshop and to show us and to learn, to teach us how to arrange research papers that they can be submitted by international journals. Well, so our workshop will work for 2 days, from 10 till 12 today, and tomorrow the same time and the same place. And in the end of the workshop, all participants will get their certificates of attendance. I think that we can start. Yeah. So, and the lecturer will announce the way we can ask our questions, either within the presentation after a logically completed section, or either within the break after the main board of presentation is completed. Okay, so you are welcome, and we can start.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. I hope everybody can understand my accent. It's not too hard to understand me, I hope. The way I would like this session to go, that if you have any questions at any time during the session, you can stop. I'd like it to be an interactive session, that it's not just us talking to you, that you can participate. This is really important. Okay, so just to start, my name is Jerald Cavanagh, as was announced. I'm head of Information and Library Services in the Limerick Institute of Technology. My area of expertise is I'm an information scientist, because I have a master's in educational planning and management, which I got in Paris in 2006. I have a master's in e-learning. I have a postgraduate in learning technologies, and I'm also a professional librarian, so I have a Bachelor of Science in Information as well. Why we do this information literacy work, not just at home in Ireland, which is obviously very important, but we also do it in Turkey, Romania. We have a Tempest project, which is information literacy in the Western Balkans. So we teach information literacy in Albania, in Kosovo, in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Montenegro. Okay, so we're currently trying to implement information literacy into the curriculum in all of those countries. So we're actually formulating policies and drafting guidelines so that they can actually introduce information literacy into their university, from the very beginning when students come in. And I'll get to why that's important later on. We also are involved in another Tempest project in Armenia and in Georgia, which is to do with to allow students with disabilities into higher education. So apart from our own jobs, which obviously we have to do as well, we also have a lot of involvement in international programs. And one of the most important is information literacy. That's generally just a little bit, giving you a bit of a background of who we are, or who I am, and Padraig can introduce himself in a moment. But it's important for us to know who you are. so that we can get a context of, where we should, kind of pitch this workshop to. So if I could ask, I know you're all looking very shy, but if I could ask if you could just give a little bit about like your name and what are you studying or whether you're a researcher. So if I could just ask from this lady here, and we can go around.
My name is Cavanagh, and I am a student. Graduated from economics faculty, and I entered to the university on master course to study foreign languages.
Okay.
My name is Natalia. I'm a student at the Faculty of Foreign Languages. I also graduated in economic faculty.
Okay.
My name is Anastasia. I'm a teacher here at the university, and my area of studies is manipulation.
Okay.
My name is Tatiana. I'm an assistant lecturer at the Foreign Languages Department. I teach English, I teach country studies, and my research area is terminology and term studies.
Okay.
My name is Anastasia. I'm an assistant lecturer, and my area is information technologies and linguistics, as well as international communication.
Okay.
My name is Ekaterina. I'm also an assistant lecturer, and I've been teaching English for 5 years already. And my research area is the ludic function language. That is the use of language for ludic purposes. I mean, play on words with language.
Okay.
My name is Irina. Now I'm a student of Foreign Language Department. Masters.
Yes, my name is Alexander. I teach English and also information technologies in translation.
Yes, I'm Sima. Well, I'm also a teacher at the Foreign Languages Department, and my research area is text linguistics.
Okay. Now I know who this guy is, so I don't need to ask him. Okay.
I'm the associate professor of the chair of English for the professional communication, and my scientific interests lie in the Bible, the cultural studies, and philosophy.
Okay. Behind.
I'm Elena. I'm a teacher of English and the English language and lexicology based on students' activity, extracurricular activity.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Tatiana, and I'm a student of Foreign Languages Department. And our area is theory and methodology of teaching.
Okay.
My name is Natalia, and I'm a student also. I'm a student of 5th year of the Foreign Language Department.
Okay.
My name is Tatiana. I'm a student at Rabочий.
My name is Natasha, and I'm a senior student at the Department of Foreign Languages. I'm majoring in English and German languages, and currently studying linguistics and methodology.
Okay. Okay. So we have a very good mix of, students and professors. And can I just ask, by a show of hands, has anybody ever done anything on information literacy? Or do you understand the concept of what information literacy is? So if you know, or you have some knowledge of it, can you raise your hand?
If no or if yes?
If yes, if you've heard about information literacy, can you raise your hand? Okay. If you haven't heard of information literacy, can you raise your hand? If you have never heard this term before?
The majority.
Okay, all right. So it's it's obvious if one person puts up his hand that he knows, and obviously the rest doesn't. Okay, but why is it important? Like Padraig is going to tell you in a few minutes why it's important, why information literacy is important. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, we have a lot of experience in working in information literacy in Ireland. We've worked in the UK, but we also do a lot of work in the Western Balkans, as I mentioned, Kosovo and Albania, okay? And our experience is, and it may be similar here, I'm not sure, but sometimes students think that when they're writing a paper, that, you know, they find the information. It used to be they find the information in a book and they can copy it and then they can present it and that's fine. Well, that's plagiarism, okay? But now we have this beautiful thing called e-resources. So we have all this digital information. So now you don't even have to copy it from the book. You know, you don't have to write it out. Now you just copy and paste it and present it, you know, in your paper or your thesis or whatever you're doing. And it makes it even easier. But this is plagiarism. So what am I talking about when it's plagiarism? Why would you worry about like whether this stuff is plagiarized or not? For example, in Armenia, Georgia, and most of the places in the Western Balkans, what our experience is that students use about maybe 20% of their own information, maybe 20, and the other 80% is what they've copied from somebody else. Now, that's the students. And where did they get this stuff from? They got this from their teacher, from the professor, because this is what the professor does. So it's not just the teacher, or it's not just the student, it's the teachers also do this. So if you're copying stuff, material, and printing it as your own, it's not going to make a big difference if that's the culture within your organization. So if your teacher does it, then you do it, well, that's not a big problem. Except for when you leave your institution and you want to get a job, and now all of a sudden you want to get a job in the UK, or you want to get a job in America, or you want to get a job where this type of culture is not acceptable. Well, then you know, the game is up. Because you don't know how to use information ethically. So you're in trouble. And for example, there's the German Chancellor. What's her name? What's the German Chancellor?
Angela Merkel.
Merkel. Well, her educational minister, I think it was, had a PhD. And then somebody researched her PhD and found out that her PhD had been plagiarized. So they took her PhD back. Now, how embarrassing would that be? Now, this is a country like Germany. So within, you know, developing countries and places where they don't have really very good ethics when it comes to information, plagiarism is a big problem. Now, I'm not sure what it's like in your organization. Is it a problem?
That's a problem, and we introduced a system that checks the percent of plagiarism, even in the students' work, and it goes without saying that all papers submitted to the university periodicals, university collections of works, they are to be checked in the respect of plagiarism.
Mm. That's normally done by a computer program called Turnitin is one of the systems. But again, that's not foolproof. You know, if a student is clever, they can actually work around that type of material. So what needs to be embedded? It's not like that, okay, we're going to check this online or we're going to check this with a computer system. What really needs to be embedded in the student is you have to use the information ethically. You have to do it right, and you have to use your own thought, okay? So what we're going to do today, and between today and tomorrow, we're going to show you some online resources which you can use. They're kind of, you know, how would you say, it's self-taught. So they're kind of steps that you can take with these online modules to show you what is information literacy and also how to avoid plagiarism. So we'll be doing that with you today. So basically it'll be, okay, when you find information, well, okay, first of all, what type of sources should you be looking for? You know, when you're either a professor or whether you're a senior student. The difference between the peer-reviewed material and the free stuff, okay? And obviously it's like, I'm not sure if you have it here, but if you have pay-per-view television, do you have pay-per-view television, which is like movies online that you can, you can pay for, or says Premier Sports? Do you have that type of material? No? Is there any method that you can pay for TV here in Russia? Yes. Okay. Now, why do you have to pay for TV?
We don't like to pay for TV.
No. Well, why do you have to? If you want to pay for TV, why would anybody want to pay for TV? Can somebody answer me why you want to pay for TV?
Again, to get a source of information, to learn the news, latest news in various spheres of in the life of our society, our country, and in other countries, to learn something. So
okay.
There may be various aims of paying for TV.
Okay. But in the, say, the UK and Ireland, okay, if you want to pay for TV, okay, so you can buy like Sky Television or Netflix is another one, okay. So if you're at home and you want to watch any movie, you can just, click on the menu, you can go and you can watch the latest movie. Or if you want to see a very good documentary, you can click on it and you can pay. But the point I'm making is this is pay-per-view, okay, TV. Now, in your libraries, you have information which is pay-per-view. So these are the databases that you have in your library, okay? And a lot of people don't realize the cost to the institution, to the university, of these resources. For example, in our institution, we would pay maybe 400,000 euros a year for online access to databases for our students. So we have lots of, online books and online journals and databases, right? So we would have possibly, 500,000 online books for our students. And then we would have, hundreds of different databases that our students can use. But students think information is like oxygen, okay? They know they need it. Without oxygen you'll die, you'll fall down. Students, lecturers, all need information. But they don't necessarily know where it comes from. So the librarians or the dean or the management in the institution pay for this really invaluable resource for the lecturers and the students. And that's why it should be used. Okay? But from our experience is a lot of students will tend to use Google. Why would you use Google? Because Google has the answer, hasn't it? Google tells you everything. Jesus, if you're looking for something, sure, it's on Google. No. That's not true. What you can find a lot of material on Google. But Google doesn't search the entire internet. And there are many other search engines. But most people will see that, okay, I can use Google or Yahoo, or they'll know if I went around the table, I could ask, how many search engines do you know? How many search engines do you know? Would you know 10? If I said Google, Yahoo, MSN, maybe Bing, so could you give me more? No. So the point I'm making, okay, so Padraig will be talking about this pay-per-view information and why this should be used. And either tomorrow or later today, I'll be talking about the internet. And I'll be talking about, okay, if a student or a lecturer is going to use the internet, well, at least have other alternatives than Google, okay? And I'll be showing you more credible internet sites where you'll be able to find the information. And when you can find it, what's very important is that you can evaluate this information, okay? And that you can say maybe 90% that this is credible. Because what I tell people is that, okay, you can use your Wikipedia, no problem. It's a good place for a reference point. But if your job depends on it, okay, and if you're writing a report or a scientific paper or, you know, a medical report, and you find the information on Wikipedia, and it could be 99.9% of the information that's on Wikipedia could be right. But that 0.1% could be the piece, that could be the difference between you having a job today or not having a job tomorrow. Because if this statistic, if you're using a statistic, or if you're using a medical formula, or you're using, say, some whatever for engineering, and you get it wrong, well then you're in trouble. So if you don't cross-reference it with the material that's actually in the library, or that's on an online database, or that's peer-reviewed, well then you're in trouble. So use Wikipedia if you want to, but always cross-check it. So basically what we're going to do over the next 2 days is we'll be talking about information literacy and why it's important. How to find the information, how to use it, and how to use it ethically. We'll talk a little bit about peer-reviewed resources and using web resources. And then the role of the librarian. Now in your institution it may be different. But whether it's a librarian that's going to do it, or whether it's a lecturer that's going to do it, you have to teach your students, when they come in, the first year, when they actually arrive on campus, this is the year that you have to teach them, right guys, this is information literacy, this is how you should find it. When you're writing it, this is how you should write your bibliography. And when you're finished writing your thesis, and this is a continuous process. It's not just when an undergraduate comes in the first year, but as they progress through their studies, say the second year or the third year, they need to get more advanced information literacy. And then if they're in the final year, then that steps up another level. So that's why it's important. That's what we hope to teach you over the next few days. So maybe Mr. Kirby now would like to get up there. He looks very comfortable. He's just sitting there listening to me. Not saying a word. So, okay. So hopefully Padraig will shed some more light.
Okay, so I'll talk about myself very briefly, just as an introduction. I'm also a librarian like Jerald. I'm a senior library assistant. I work in Limerick Institute of Technology Library Service. My educational background, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Theology and English, and I also have the professional library qualification, higher diploma in library information studies, and also masters in information and library studies from Robert Gordon University. So that's my my educational background. Just some a few words about the origins of this phrase, information literacy. Where does it come from? Well, basically, it's you know, often associated with the library profession, and you know, librarians you know, have taught this subject you know, over the last 30-40 years. This term, information literacy, was coined by an academic, a man called Paul Zurkowski from the United States in 1973. Okay, so this phrase, information literacy, it did not exist until 1973. And so this means that it's a relatively new field, but with the rise of the internet, as Jerald has talked about, information literacy has become a major focus in universities. Now, there are no departments of information literacy. There are no, you know, it would be highly unusual for there to be lecturers in information literacy. There's no school of information literacy. Information literacy is basically, it has been left to the librarians, I suppose, to deliver information literacy. That's not to say that academics don't have some role to play. They do. Academics do have a role to play, you know, in the area of maybe referencing and citation. They can get involved in that. But it has been, you know, since this phrase was coined, it has been the librarians who have been the great promoters of information literacy. So what I have up in front of me here, this is an online information literacy course, okay? And you'll be able to access this yourself. excuse me, if we go to our friend Google and type in Cranfield Information Literacy, this course will come up. It's freely available and it's well worth a look. And I'm just going to be using it today just to explain some of the concepts around information literacy. Chiefly, what I'll be doing today is books 1 to 5, okay? So each of these is a self-contained course, okay? There's the first course is focusing your research question, then mind the information gap. That deals with all the different information sources and resources that are out there, books, journals, electronic resources, theses, etc. Book 4 and 5 then, books 3 and 4, this deals with how to search for information, and it's mainly how to search for information online, okay? The different tools and tactics and tricks you can use to find information quickly. And then there's a very important section then about evaluating information. And how do you evaluate information? Would anybody like to answer that? What do you think you need?
To evaluate information.
Pardon?
You mean, what do we need to evaluate?
What tools do you need?
We need to have some proof that the information is correct.
Reference
yes.
Maybe, yes.
But what do you need to prove to yourself that the
Depends
information...
on the kind of information we're talking about.
Yeah.
For example, if it's information about some organization, maybe we should visit the official website of this organization.
Yes, yeah.
So whether it's a public website or some personal website.
Yes. What you're talking about there is, I suppose, authority and reliability. But I suppose just one word, I think, that sums it up what you need. You need criteria, okay? You need to, you know, is the information authoritative? Is the information current? Is it out of date? You know,
authors of the information.
Yeah, the author is one, okay? The others are the currency, accuracy, etc., etc. So we'll deal with a bit of that. But just starting at the very beginning, the student is trying to focus their research question, okay? So, just another definition there, information literacy is finding, evaluating, and using information, okay? Now, we would also add using information ethically to that definition. So where is the very beginning of this whole process for the student? Where do you start? And as it says here, whether assigned by a supervisor or chosen by yourself, the starting point of any voyage of discovery is always a research question. Okay, so this could be the title of your thesis, or it could be the title of an assignment you have to do, but this is at the very beginning, and it's often expressed as a problem to be answered, and it will help give direction and focus to the research. So the research question, firstly, it defines the direction of your work, it guides the approaches, it filters out irrelevant information, and it should interest your reader. So you need to put the research question into the context of the situation, whether it's personal or general or belonging to your faculty or organization. What are the wider objectives of the research? What are the specific objectives? And the type and content and depth of information to support your argument and answer your question will differ. For example, if it's a presentation, it's likely that you will not need in-depth information search, but maybe more images and statistics. If it's an essay you have to do, this will involve in-depth searching. And finally, if you have to do a dissertation, then you will have to do thorough literature search. Okay.
So is that the case here? Do you actually do that? Like, do you have a research question? Like, okay, there are different levels. If it's an undergraduate and they're going for their BA, okay, they don't add much to the knowledge base. If you're a master's student, you should add to the knowledge base. You should be adding something, to what's already learned. If you're a PhD, obviously a different level. And what the research question is trying to do is you're trying to answer a phenomena, that you realize something, you recognize something is different in society, and you're going to prove or disprove why that is or why that isn't. A good example I think of that is that if you look at, say, an airline, say a plane, there are 3 seats normally on a plane. People will sit by the window or people will sit at the aisle. But people don't like sitting in the middle. So why did they build 3 seats on an airplane? So you could actually do a research on, okay, well, you know, everybody likes to sit at the aisle or the window, but yet there's 3 seats. So why do people sit in the 3rd seat? And the reason they sit in the 3rd seat is because they've no choice, right? Or that they're with somebody. So that's basically, you know, I'm making a bit of fun of it, but that's basically what your research question is trying to do. You identify a phenomena in society and you're going to prove it or disprove it. Okay? Okay, sorry for interrupting you.
So we mentioned that word literature search. This is a comprehensive and systematic search of published material on a particular subject. So you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the research question? Okay? Is your objective, are you trying to inform or to persuade to a point of view? Are you analysing a current or future situation? Or are you covering new ground? Are you designing a survey? Are you sending it out to lots of people, getting the results back, and then writing about these new findings? So very important then is you have to evaluate your research question. Your research question, it must be unambiguous. You know, it must be clear. It can't be too vague. It can't be too specific either. It has to be realistic. So, you know, for example, supposing that you decided that you were going to write your thesis and you were going to call it Education in Europe, okay, or going to call it Education Systems in Europe, okay. What do you think is wrong with that research question? Or the state of e-learning in Europe?
Stick with education system.
Yeah.
Well, what's wrong with the question of, right, you decide you're going to write your PhD and you're going to do educational systems in Europe. Anybody identify any problem that you might have with that?
Too wide, too general. Too general, because there are several steps of educational system in every country, and I think that we should limit our research within particular steps or a particular field of professional education. So somehow I have to limit it.
Right. At the very first stage, it can be useful to see different ideas associated with this topic.
Yeah.
So it depends on the searcher. So if, for example, the searcher has some knowledge about the educational system, then he or she can narrow the research question. And if it's just a very beginner, so maybe yes, it's useful to start just with this formula.
Yes, when you start your research, you give such a general search topic, search area. Yes, you can even look at Wikipedia and see what kind of aspects are usually discussed.
I suppose then, I mean, if you decided to call your thesis or your assignment, you know, the state of or the use of virtual learning environments in Russian higher education or Russian Federation higher education, this will be more specific, probably be more realistic. Because with the other example, if you were writing about education in Europe, first you have to write about education in Ireland, then you write about education in the UK, then you write about education, and you would never finish this. You know, you would never say. You know, yes. So that's an extreme example, but you know, just to illustrate, it must be focused. It must be new. You know, is what you're tackling for your PhD, has it been done already? And how do you find out if it has been done already? You need to do your literature research, you need to search for the information and search for the previous scholars who have written on these particular topics. And as I just illustrated, is it general or is it too specific? You know, a research question can also be too specific. So here's some more examples here of refining and focusing a research question. So, you know, the steps you need to take to focus a research question, you can do things like, somebody mentioned Wikipedia there, you can use reference secondary materials, encyclopedias, textbooks, you can perform a literature search, okay? This will tell you, for example, very quickly, if what you're doing is completely new and groundbreaking, or if what you're doing has been done 1,000 times before. You can talk to a colleague, okay? You can seek advice from your supervisor. Often, you know, whoever your supervisor is, they've been through all this before, that they know the major authors in their field, etc. Brainstorming, etc., etc. So here's some examples here. So, supposing the student is going to call their PhD thesis or whatever they're doing regional security in the Middle East. So what is the problem with this research question?
He should specify the region.
Yeah, or he could specify a country. As it says there, it's too vague, open-ended. What does regional security mean? Or what does Middle East mean in this context? And it's not focused, whereas this is a bit better. Proliferation of nuclear weapons in Israel, Iran and Syria. More specific about location, focuses, research. So just one thing I meant to say about this resource is that this was actually developed by a military school in the United Kingdom. So some of the examples, there is some UK bias, and there's also, some of the examples are from the military field, okay, so this is why this one is popping up there. Next example, supposing the student was going to call, give this as the title of their PhD, the level of information literacy of university staff and students. This is not very useful. It's too broad, unclear, it's completely ambiguous. Universities in Ireland, universities in the Russian Federation, staff and students, undergrad, postgrad, how do we know? Nobody knows. So this is a little bit better. An investigation into the level of information literacy of full-time research students and academic supervisors could be improved a bit more in that it could say where, etc., but it's a little bit better. And our final example then, measuring service quality. Okay, somebody's going to write their PhD and they're going to call it measuring service quality. What kind of service? Where? What fields? You know, they would never sleep. They would never finish writing this. So, but this is better. This is very specific now. Quality assurance standards and performance evaluation methods in diagnostic radiography services in London hospitals. So this is clear. It's clear that this is about measuring service quality in the health sector. Okay, so this is what this is about.
And
So
there's also a problem that, you know, because that's so defined. What's the problem with that?
Too long.
Too?
Extensive.
Yeah, but also is, you know, when a student goes, like, what we find is that sometimes a student, without talking, as Padraig mentioned, without talking to their lecturer, without talking to colleagues, they get an idea into their head that they're going to do a particular topic. And they haven't actually found out if there's any resources that's written on this. So if you're writing a PhD or you're writing a master's thesis, you can't have original thought. You can't come up with, like, you're not Einstein, okay? So maybe if you were Einstein, people will take you, in 100 years, they might say, well, you were right. But if you're not Einstein, well, then you have to be able to say, well, such an author has, you know, you're quoting other authors, and you're proven by definition, and by using references, you're proving your own hypothesis. But you can't just write a thesis without having any references. So basically, if you pick a topic that there's no other resources already written on, like in this particular case he's talking about some type of service management in London, in a hospital. But if you can't find journal articles or books, or well, then you're relying totally on whatever survey you're going to send out, or whatever type of interview you're going to do. But that's almost 100% your own original work. So when somebody goes to market, or somebody goes to give you a grade for it, you're basically relying on the credibility of the research that you have done, which is dangerous if you don't have other references. So.
Okay, so supposing you've gotten to the stage where you now have a focused research question, you've written it down, you know what you're going to write about, or you have a fair idea at least. So just write it down, okay? Write it down somewhere. And what's the next step? The important thing is that at all times you keep, when you're studying on this, you keep your research question in mind at all times. You have to think about the information you need, the information you have, and the information gap, okay? So, to determine what information you need, consider what you are being asked to do. Are you being asked to provide evidence that lists, to find lists or data to support a presentation? Are you going to discuss different views and find ideas and conclusions and explain them? Do you have to analyze something? Review ideas of other authors, then discard some and explain why? Will the information you need enable you to answer the question fully, to reach a conclusion, or to support or contradict your arguments? Then there's the information you have, okay? What information do you have on this topic, okay? Or what can you very quickly and easily get hold of, okay? Well, you can contact colleagues, tutors, you can go to your friendly librarian, information specialist. They can help you with your searching and finding information. And you can just perform preliminary searches on library catalogues. So in the Russian Federation, is the online library catalogue, is this quite common in all university libraries? Yes, yeah, as in Ireland. So they're very useful, and nowadays, of course, you have more sophisticated search mechanisms. For example, there's a Google-like search engine called Summon, okay, which we have implemented in Limerick Institute of Technology. And instead of having, 30, 40 databases that the student has to go into each one, now what you have, and this is the way things are moving. I don't know if this is in the Russian Federation yet, perhaps it is, but this is the way libraries are moving. You have this one search box, a Google-like search box, with searches across all of your databases at the one time, okay?
Do you have this? Do you have this in the library? Where instead of going into individual databases, like if you go into Emerald or you go into Science Direct, you have to log in and put in a password, yes? From the university? No? Okay, so what Padraig's talking about is called a federal search, which will basically search, if you have 30 online databases, it'll search right across the 30 of them with one single access point, which is very useful for students. But there's a danger to that, which I'll discuss later.
And so then you have the information you need, the information you have, and what's the information gap then? The information gap is the journey between what you have and what you need. It can be a long or a short journey. You may need to review your research question along the way. In some research, the direction and methods will change depending on what is discovered along the way. So you may actually change your mind about certain aspects of the study. Consider whether to bridge the gap you need to consult primary sources, which is information provided at the time of an event, normally by someone who has personal knowledge of the facts. Unpublished information is an example of primary information. Primary data is data that you have either created or been party to creating, records of experiments, notes from observations, etc. Or you may need to use secondary information, is one that describes primary information, such as indexes, abstracts, textbooks, etc. So generally you should use primary sources for more in-depth research questions when analysing and drawing conclusions yourself, and use secondary sources to develop understanding and support the view you need to argue. And next then, you need to create a research plan. And in creating a plan, you need to create a timetable, and it's advisable to work backwards from the desired or compulsory end date and allow plenty of time for the final activities. So what's final activities? Your reference list, for example, spell checking, etc., etc. Time management is vital, okay? Allow time for any reviews of what you've written, be it peer reviews, tutors, referees, your supervisor. Allow time for the acknowledgement of sources, okay? Because if you don't acknowledge sources, you will plagiarize. You need time, maybe, it could be the case that you may have to present this at a conference before you can actually finish the piece of work. You may need to revise, and just publication of the final report, the final assignment, the paper, the actual getting it done, getting it printed, bound, etc., etc. So that's just a summary there of the first book there on the information literacy module. What we've covered there is how to focus your research question. Start by defining a general research question. The research question contains and implies keywords that help define the directions of your research. Now that's very important, especially when you're searching for information, that you extract the keywords from the title so you can punch them into online databases to find the information. You can use thesauruses, to find, the words that mean the same as other words, and you can expand your list of keywords, which will help you find even more information. For example, if you're doing a study about renewable energy, there are many other phrases and words that will help you find the information about renewable energy. For example, you could type in wind energy, you could type in biomass, you could type in wave power, and all these different terms could help you find more information. Okay, so that's pretty much the first book on our journey. Has anybody any questions? What that covers there is basically the very beginning of the information literacy process. Has anybody any questions?
Okay, and just going back, because I think we're going to break for tea or coffee. Yeah, but just going back to what we were saying is like this information. It might seem obvious to to lecturers, or it might seem obvious to master's students. But when you're an undergraduate student and you come in the first day into college, you don't know this stuff, So who's going to teach them this material if it's not a librarian or if it's not a lecturer that's going to actually walk them through these steps? So this is only the very first step, as Padraig said, that an undergraduate should have. And by the time you get to the, through the, how many books is it, 8 or 9?
There's 9 in that.
9 books. So if that's the very first one, and it has you thinking now, even as senior lecturers or as students, master's students, you can imagine by the time you get through 9 books and you were to do this, how improved your skills would be in writing and thinking about information and using information.